Well, thank you. I want to thank Chairman Cornyn, Ranking Member Feinstein for holding this important hearing. I want to thank all of you for your years of school and research and dedication to this extremely important topic. I want to talk a little bit about medical marijuana. Although marijuana is legal in Nevada for both medicine and recreational purposes, the research that you're doing is so important for my state's hospitals, providers, schools, parents, law enforcement agencies, anybody that's concerned with the public health impact. And there are approximately in Nevada about 17,000 medical marijuana patients. So this research that you do really impacts their lives and their ability to seek treatment for their medical conditions. And so with that in mind, I really appreciate the bipartisan approach which has led to this hearing, and I hope the conversation will continue to be research and science-based. It's so important that we have these longitudinal studies, epidemiological studies, so on and so forth. It makes a real difference as to how our communities can educate and legislate if we need to do the right thing. But I want to talk about the potential benefits of medical cannabis in treating our nation's veterans. We have over 220,000 veterans in Nevada, and let me tell you, I don't have to tell you how much they do struggle. They struggle with chronic pain, they struggle with depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress symptoms, and in too many cases, they're becoming addicted to medications prescribed to them. Opioids, other things like that. Our veterans, they have given so much to their country. They just want to come back. They want to claim their lives and continue to serve their communities in whatever way is good for them and their families. And so VA providers are currently prohibited from recommending or prescribing cannabis use. The VA won't reimburse veterans for medical marijuana prescriptions from any source. Former VA Secretary David Shulkin, he stated last week he believes the VA should be involved in research on anything that could potentially help veterans and their well-being. So to Dr. Hennessy and then anyone else after, you were a member of a committee that conducted a rigorous overview of available research on the potential health benefits of cannabis, or therapeutic benefits. It also identifies barriers to research. You made recommendations. So I would really appreciate your thoughts of how we might use cannabis to help our veterans through anxiety and depression in those ways, and find alternatives to treat the issues that they are suffering from when they come home.
So thank you for your question, Senator. So of the uses that you mentioned, there's randomized trial data supporting the use of cannabis products for chronic pain. And the cannabis products that were studied most often for chronic pain was an oral solution of 1-to-1 THC to CBD. It wasn't either smoked or vaped cannabis. The other indications that you mentioned, anxiety, depression, PTSD, there are not good data from randomized trials that support the efficacy of either whole cannabis or cannabis-derived products for those indications. Lack of evidence doesn't mean that the products aren't, none of the constituents of cannabis aren't effective. In some cases, it merely means that the studies haven't been conducted, or not enough of them have been conducted to identify a beneficial effect if there is one.
So you would support us funding or lifting the ban on some of the research to find out if we can use these products effectively, Dr. Gruber?
Yes, and thank you so much for focusing on this issue. We have a program through the Mind program called Serving Those Who Have Served, and it's dedicated to our veterans because so many are already using cannabis or cannabinoids for treatment. Many are interested in using it, but we have no real data.
Right.
So, we come at this as a quasi clinical trial because we can't administer products that are in the marketplace, given our current federal regulations and restrictions. So we do the best that we can, but we follow these folks over time, longitudinally. And we need more data like that to be able to really understand the impact. As referred to by Dr. Hennessy, we don't have a ton of data, but certainly lifting anything that would allow greater research efforts to be made I would be in favor of.
Well, thank you. I want to, you spoke about chronic pain, and I was fortunate enough to be able to start the Comprehensive Care Caucus, which is focusing on palliative care, people living with a terminal illness or chronic disease, and they need palliative care, although they may not be getting curative care. And so, can you speak to the effects of how we could use cannabis in a palliative care spectrum for those, like I said, living with chronic disease or living longer with terminal illness to relieve some of the symptoms that they may be having as a result of their disease?
Sure. So one of the symptoms that patients in palliative care experience is chronic pain. And as I mentioned, there are clinical trials showing that oral solutions of cannabis extract are effective for chronic pain. In terms of other indications for use in the palliative care setting, I think more research is needed to be able to recommend them as effective therapies. We don't want to recommend therapies and offer false hope to people
Right.
For therapies that end up not being effective, that in addition have side effects on their own.
Right. Thank you.
I think it's also important to, just to dovetail on what Dr. Hennessy is saying, to be able to assess the actual products that patients are using, as
Right.
opposed to just sort of guessing. And the one-to-one ratios of oral solutions, things like Sativex, are not necessarily in the marketplace for our palliative care patients. Our ongoing longitudinal study at the MIND program actually follows patients with chronic pain as a subgroup, and they demonstrate improvements over time using lots of different products. But this research is really in its infancy, and this is, as far as I know, the only longitudinal study like this in the country.
Right.
We need a lot more.
Well, I applaud all of your work, and I do think that particularly in the medical space, trying to find the ways that we can use marijuana to whether make chronic pain, anxiety, terminal disease, PTSD, depression, if we can find ways that make people help them go better through their lives, then it is definitely worth researching, and I appreciate your hard work. Thank you.